What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Take His Whistle podcast is finally back. We've got a really long episode for you guys today. Just so much to catch up on. We've been gone for, it's probably been about 2 weeks now, but stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. We got a lot to talk about. Plenty of news. Definitely not short of anything. So stay tuned, everyone.
Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Lets it fly. Oh my goodness! Touchdown LSU! They win the game! Back today, so I got time to be tripping and writing no love song. Yeah, writing no love song. We all experience love loss. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Take His Whistle podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh, and as fucking always, I am joined by my good friend and co-host, Parker. Parker, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. It has been, you said 2 weeks. I feel like it's been more like almost a month.
It might be. It's been a long time since either one of us have ever done that introduction, and it feels good. It feels good.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Some might even say this is season 2 of Take His Whistle.
Potentially,
maybe,
maybe. But look, we're coming into a new year. It's 2024. Me and Parker are extremely excited to start off 2024 with this episode because, this is just a great episode to start off the 2024's, I guess, season, honestly, with it. But just first and foremost, Happy New Year, everyone. And
Yeah. Sure.
The next important thing is happy belated birthday to my co-host, Parker. Just turned 21 last week.
Yo, you know what's crazy?
What's that?
Happy belated birthday to my co-host, Josh.
Oh
he
my
just turned
gosh.
21 this past week.
That's right, everyone. Lord. You heard it. You heard it here over the month break. Me and Parker both turned 21. We are both now officially able to do quite literally everything in the world. We're pretty much...
Except rent a car.
Yeah, except rent a car,
yet.
which is, yeah. And actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, we can't actually rent an Airbnb by ourselves either, because most of those...
Is that 25 as well?
Yeah, well, most of them are like 24, 25. But that's whatever. That's, that's...
We'll
that's
get there.
that, we'll get there eventually. But we're back. We're back. And Parker, so much has happened in the college world and the NFL world. Obviously, we made no episodes during the college football playoffs. We made no episodes at the beginning of the NFL playoffs. And a lot has happened in the offseason in college already, whether it's transfer portal or coaching changes, which I'm sure everyone knows what I'm kind of hinting at there. But obviously, we're going to get into it. But as always, Parker, I'm going to ask the famous question here. Where would you like to start, my friend?
Yeah, I think that because I think there's no denying it that this episode is going to be fairly long, just to kind of recap and touch on some of the major things, and then we'll kind of go more specific in later episodes.
Yeah.
I think we start with the college football scene first. The first thing that I do want to talk about, and just if there is any Michigan fans watching, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Done the improbable and finally won a national championship.
What was it?
Especially with Jim Harbaugh.
30 years it was? Something like that it was? Yeah.
It's been a while. It has been a while.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we have to just kind of tip our hats off to Michigan. They took out Alabama, which I know down here in Kentucky, I feel like majority of the people kind of thought that it was going to be a walk in the park for Alabama, and it wasn't. It was not at all. Now, no credit or no disrespect to Alabama. Alabama played phenomenal. Jalen Milroe did everything in his power to win that game, but just Michigan, especially their defense, was just a little too much for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Washington beat Texas, which was another really good game in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Michigan, Washington championship, real quick, Josh, just because I have been such a advocate of the Washington Huskies, if you watch any previous episode, especially mid-season college football, I was fully on the Washington bandwagon. I loved Washington, even if they were barely squeaking by wins. I liked Michael Penix. I thought he should have won Heisman. So just them making the playoffs was just like I really, really wanted them to win. Like I was really cheering my butt off for Washington to win. But all good things have to come to an end. Michigan kind of runs away with that game late, and Michigan is a champion. So Josh, did you see anything that really stuck out to you and I guess you can do any of the playoff games, but specifically the national championship game that was really just like the turning point and why Michigan was more or less dominant in this playoff run?
I'm sorry. You asked me, did I see anything in the national championship game specifically as to what, or in the playoffs in general?
Game or the playoffs, like Michigan,
Okay.
Alabama, anything that just really
okay.
kind of stuck out to you?
Well, first things first. I mean, you already said it, but their defense. Their defense was so steady, and they played so strong throughout the entire playoffs. I mean, if you look at the Michigan-Alabama game, it wasn't relatively a shootout like I think a lot of people thought it might be, but the way they held Jalen Milroe is very impressive, because going into that game, I thought Jalen Milroe might have had a clinic. And I know Michigan has what most people consider the best DB in college football. But even then, Alabama's still strong. Nick Saban, he always has the boys ready for the playoffs. And it was interesting to see the Alabama get shut down like that on offense, because I've just never really seen it that strongly before. And J.J. McCarthy specifically probably had his best game of the season in that Alabama game. 17 for 27, 221 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They don't rely on him to pass like that very often. I mean, throughout the entire season, it's been Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. I don't want to confuse him with the Colorado running back. Yeah, Donovan. It's been Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards for most of the season. They've relied on that run game heavy, and it's paid off. I mean, they were undefeated going into the playoffs, and it was, if we're all being honest here, it was mostly because of how successful their run game was and their defense. And that's one of the things that stuck out to me a lot. And if we want to talk about specifically the national championship, same thing. Defense, shutting down, which, I'll admit when I'm wrong. All right. Michael Penix Jr. probably should have won Heisman, because the way I watched him play, I watched that Texas-Washington game, and what he did against Texas was so impressive, and the way that he leads that team is something special. I mean, this Washington team, I know they kind of got blown out in the championship, but regardless of how the national championship ended up, this team, I mean, he led this team to levels that nobody thought they'd reach this year. And I'm so impressed by his performance. But Michigan, come national championship time, just shut that entire Washington offense down. Michael Penix Jr., 27 for 51 for 255 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Dylan Johnson, one of the best running backs in the nation this year, only 11 carries, 33 yards. I mean,
they couldn't get
and they couldn't get anything going. And then when you look on the other side, I mean, guys, it's like I just said, the Michigan run game. If it's working, why go away from it? Blake Corum, 21 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, only 6 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's a 1-2 punch that took over. And, I mean, personally, I'm excited to see Donovan Edwards this upcoming year, because he announced that he's returning. And, I mean, from what I saw from him, he's incredible. And it doesn't look like he's transferring. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere. So I'm extremely excited to see him, because honestly, he looks like Blake Corum 2.0. And if you watch college football, you know Blake Corum. He's probably the best running back prospect in the draft. It's just incredible. I honestly, for all the shit that I gave Michigan after everything that happened, the cheating scandal, whatever you want to say about Michigan, what I saw from them in the playoffs is very impressive in a team that put teams in a chokehold and did not let go. And it was very impressive. And same with Washington. All season, putting teams in chokeholds and not letting go. And I wouldn't say that I'm not impressed with Texas or Alabama. I just don't think they came as prepared. And that's why we saw the national championship we did.
Again, like, I know we talked about it the last time we kind of talked about college football, but Florida State not getting in, Georgia not getting in, all in all, at the end of the day, I think the NCAA put the best 4 teams in that playoffs.
Yeah.
I think those were the best 4 teams, regardless. They gave us very, very good matchups, especially in that Final Four, I guess. And then, like I said, I know it was a blowout, but I mean, it was a fairly close game until that fourth quarter in the national championship. I think Michigan scored. I think it was like 14-0 in the fourth or something like that. But I think all in all, the NCAA did their job. They put the best 4 teams out there.
I full-heartedly agree. I mean, throughout every game, I mean, if I'm being honest, like, Florida State fans drew out the complaining so long. It was really annoying to get on Twitter and see it every single day. And I got to be honest, Florida State fans, you would have gotten your asses kicked if you made the playoffs. Regardless of who you played, you would have lost, and it wouldn't have been pretty, like, at all. You guys would have gotten maybe shut out. You got damn near shut out in your bowl game. You probably would have gotten shut out in the playoffs. And that's no dig. You guys had a great team. But from what I saw from these playoff teams, nothing about Florida State made me think they would have been able to compete with these teams. Now, Florida State has a great defense. They have a great offense. They have great players both sides of the ball. Jared Verse, great defensive lineman, one of the best in the league or in the nation. Keon Coleman, obviously, everyone knows who he is, one of the best receivers in the nation. But at the end of the day, when you really look at it, not having Jordan Travis really would have affected you guys very negatively if you got put into the playoffs. I don't think your all's backup, which I really don't know who it would have been. Because the backup that played Louisville in the ACC championship, he actually transferred out. So I don't know who would have played.
But he may have, if they made the playoffs.
Yeah, but he may have played in the playoffs. Yeah, I agree. But if I have to look at the Florida State that played my team, Louisville, in the ACC championship, if I have to look at that Florida State team and say, would they have done anything in the playoffs against any of the 4 teams that made it, I would have said no. I would have said no. After everything that I've seen in every game in the playoffs, I would have said no.
I mean, no diss to Louisville here, but I mean, you saw how much Florida State struggled to score against Louisville, right?
Yeah.
Especially in that first half.
Mm-hmm.
Again, no disrespect. That was one of the worst first halves I've ever watched in my life of football, was that Louisville-Florida State game.
I mean, I think we damn near fell asleep on my couch watching that shit.
No, we really did. We really almost did. So Louisville was not on the same level as Michigan, Washington, Alabama, Texas, Georgia. They weren't on that same level. And if they struggled that much against Louisville, if they somehow, and it's hard for me to sit there and use the Georgia game, the Florida State Georgia game, as an example, just because how many players didn't play. You can't 100% get a good accurate statement from it. But Florida State, that Florida State team that played Louisville, playing Washington, playing Alabama, playing Michigan, like you said, they're getting shut out. they are going to have absolutely a nightmare offensively against any of those teams. Even Washington, who we have in the past questioned their defense at times, I still think that defense is going to murder any Florida State offense that they put out there. Does Jordan Travis, I guess that's a good question, is if Jordan Travis is playing, does that make a difference? It's hard to say. It really is, but I mean,
now this could just be me being an ACC fan, but I do think if Jordan Travis was the QB for Florida State, I think it would have made an extreme difference. I really do think so, because
not only them making the playoffs, but do you think they have a legitimate shot of beating a Alabama or a Michigan or a Washington? Or do
it's hard to say, because those are the two teams that made the national championship. So
that's what I was saying.
We're talking about we're talking about 1 and 2 here. Going into the playoffs, Michigan and Washington weren't 1 and 2. Michigan was 1, but Washington wasn't 2. I'm pretty sure Washington was 4 going into the playoffs. So Florida State probably would have played Michigan had they made it. So if we're saying hypothetically, okay, hypotheticals, again, nobody knows what would have happened. This is all what ifs. Jordan Travis never gets hurt. Florida State wins out. They make it to the playoffs. They get the 3 seed. It's Michigan. Well, okay. Who in this hypothetical, I'm gonna have Florida State replacing Bama in this hypothetical.
Okay.
So they win out. They still have Jordan Travis. The teams are Michigan, Washington, Texas, Florida State. Florida State plays Michigan. Texas still plays Washington. Everything plays out. Washington beats Texas. If you're asking me if I think Jordan Travis led Florida State would have put up a competition against Michigan, I think they would have. Would they have won? I don't think so. And I'm confidently saying I don't think so, because we saw what Michigan's defense did to Jalen Milroe. We saw what Michigan's defense did to Michael Penix Jr. Those are 2 of the best QBs in the nation. Arguably, well, first and foremost, Michael Penix Jr. better than Jordan Travis. Jalen Milroe, arguably better than Jordan Travis. You can make that argument. So we saw what Michigan did to 2 top-tier quarterbacks in the nation. I don't see anything different happening with Michigan's defense against a Jordan Travis-led Florida State team. Would they have played a good game? Maybe. Probably. Florida State has very good playmakers. They have a very good offense. But, again, we've seen what Michigan did to 2 high-powered offenses with tons of playmakers and stars. So, that's my 2 cents.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree with you at the end of the day. Just because, like you said, we saw what Michigan was able to do to arguably better quarterbacks than Jordan Travis. So, I mean, all of this, obviously, hypothetical. He said, she said stuff. We'll never know. I guess Jordan Travis is on his way to the NFL now, or going to at least try to. But Florida State has a much better chance next year, as there will be 12 teams in the playoffs, not just 4 for them to make it. But the next thing I do want to talk about is it's still on the Michigan side. Their coach, Jim Harbaugh, finally overcomes the national championship. He gets a win. He gets a ring. There was a lot of controversy throughout the season with him, whether it was the cheating scandal. There was a couple other things that came out about him. Where it's at right now, he's coming off a national championship game. Michigan already offered him, mind you, they already offered him the highest paid contract in the entire Big Ten. If he comes back to Michigan, he will be the highest paid coach. I don't know numbers. I don't know how much that would be. But there's
it's probably one of the highest in the nation, if I had to guess too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would be sure. Los Angeles Chargers, they have an opening. The Tennessee Titans have an opening. There are a few NFL teams that he potentially could go to. I'm also, if I had to guess, there's probably another college school that's probably opening, but I would be dumbfounded if he took another college job that's not Michigan. Do you think that does Harbaugh just hang it up on the Michigan standpoint? He finally overcame everything. He won a championship. A lot of his guys are leaving. He's coming in with a fairly new team, or does he just leave that there, go to LA with already a promising roster, or we thought was a promising roster? What do you think? Do you think NFL or college?
Yeah, so Jim Harbaugh he's already interviewed with the Chargers, and he just interviewed with the Falcons today. That's only 2 NFL teams that he's interviewed for out of, I think, 4 or 5 that I know of off the top of my head. I think it's hard for me because I haven't really seen any news about Michigan players. And what I mean by that is Michigan recruits, Michigan transfers, Michigan players on the team. I haven't really seen too much about players on the team or anything like that. And normally in this situation, Parker, typically if a coach is leaving a college or leaving a college for another school or for the NFL, typically we see a huge wave of players that are committed, transferring, or already on that team, decommit, transfer out, whatever it may be. We saw it with Alabama, which we'll get to soon. So because I haven't seen that type of news yet, I'm very hesitant to say that he's definitely going to the league. But if I had to lean one way or the other, I think I'd put my money on him going to the league, because I think, like you said, he's accomplished everything in college, and I think he really does want to go back to the league. Because as we know, he already went to the league once, and he made it to the Super Bowl with the Niners against his brother. And lost. And I think he really, I think he knows he has what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. So I think I think that competitive nature in him is really going to want to take it to the next level and see what he can do. Now, do I think he stays the course and tries to become one of the best college coaches of all time, which maybe some people would say he's already up there? I don't know. I really don't know. The lack of news, the lack of reports on him, other than me just seeing that he's interviewing for NFL jobs, shies me away from saying confidently that he's going to the league. But like I said, if I had to choose one or the other, I would put my money on him going to the league. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see him sign a Supermax extension with Michigan. And like you said, I don't see him leaving Michigan for another school. That would be ridiculous. I don't think he's that type of coach. But I guess you never know. I don't see it. But yeah.
To me, Jimmy, I think you go ahead and just pack up out of that cold Michigan weather. You fly west to LA, that shiny new Chargers job. You have a good roster, a good foundation already where you can build from. It's not like you're going to be thrown into a Panthers situation where it's just all bad, or a Patriots situation. You have a nice foundation to build from. You're going to get a bag regardless, whether you stay in college or the NFL. So, I'm sure already he's not struggling and getting by week. I'm sure he's doing all right, if I had to guess. I think you take that LA job and just go from there. I think that's your best move, because it also kind of dissolves any criticism or just controversy whether he was really cheating or not. It's, it'll kind of help mute those type of reports or haters, whatever you want to call it, if he goes to the NFL. Because I feel like regardless, if you are at Michigan, you're going to have kind of, there won't be as many people because they won a national championship, but there are going to be still a few people, probably a lot of Ohio State people, if I had to guess, sitting there saying Harbaugh is a cheater. The only way he can win is if he cheats. So, I mean, LA seems like the most practical thing for Harbaugh at this point in his coaching career.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Parker, off of that note, but while we're still on coaches, it's time to talk about him. The GOAT, the greatest coach of our time, the greatest coach of our generation, the greatest college football coach of all time, calls it wraps and retires at the age of, 74, I think it is?
Too damn old.
Nick Saban officially retires. Parker, what were your thoughts when you saw the news?
Well, I found out from you. I really did not know. I was watching a football game. It might have been the national champ. I don't remember. I don't remember when it was. Whenever you texted me saying that Saban retired, and I was kind of just like, no, he didn't. And then literally about 5 minutes later, I started getting flooded with notifications. Anywhere I got on social media, Nick Saban retires. In my opinion, I don't know, Josh, you still there?
Uh-huh.
Okay. In my opinion,
what happened? Oh, did my webcam? What the hell?
Yeah, the webcam. I didn't know if it was still on or not. In my opinion, Saban, if you want to talk about accomplishing everything in college football, Nick Saban had done so. He had done so. He has multiple national championships, led Alabama to be the most dominant, not just in the SEC, but the most dominant program in college football. It's Alabama. You think about college football, it is Alabama, and that is a big reason is because of Nick Saban. Probably the main reason is because of Nick Saban. Everybody knows the name. Mm-hmm. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. More than likely going to get a statue put up of him at some point. I think that, I mean, I'm sure people like Jalen Milroe is not happy. I'm sure he really wanted to at least finish his career, but you're going to get that regardless whenever you quit. You're always going to have people in the middle of their time there. To me, I think it's a perfect time. I think it's a perfect time. And the reason I think it's such a crucial point right now is because we are in the middle of a turning point in college football. Not only just the playoffs, that's a big one, but also NIL deals, transfer portal is unreal, which I could go on and on and on about that because I don't like it. But, it's a whole, it's not just recruits anymore. Who can get the best recruits? Because Saban locked that up. He owns that. He has ran away with that. If he wants somebody, he's going to get it. The transfer portal and NIL money, that's a little bit different. Maybe Saban didn't, maybe he himself didn't like it. Maybe he wasn't living up to what he thought he could. So, I mean, if there has been a better time to call it quits and just call it a career, it is right now. It is right now, and, nothing but respect to him. Nothing but respect.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt the greatest college football coach of all time. And like you said, the way the game is changing, the way that money is becoming such a huge factor publicly, because obviously money has played a factor privately for decades right. And decades. I mean, we're not going to sit here and pretend like Saban wasn't using money for the longest time. He clearly was. Everybody was. That's fine. But the way that money is becoming such a public thing in college football, I mean, Parker, we saw it already. One of the greatest college basketball coaches of our time, Jay Wright, famously called it wraps because of the way the game was changing. It's just not the same game. And I think, honestly, what we're going to see here soon, Parker, is we're going to see a lot of these younger coaches, a lot of these more middle-aged coaches like Lane Kiffin, Mike Norvell, Jeff Brom, Mark Stoops even. A lot of these younger guys, a lot of Kalen DeBoer, the guy who just replaced Saban at Alabama. We're going to see a lot of these younger coaches taking over the game because they're going to know how to use the business side of the way that college football is becoming. They're going to know how to use NIL. They're going to know how to use the transfer portal. And these older guys like Nick Saban, they're just too old. They're just too old to transition their game like this fast, this quickly. Obviously, like you said, Nick Saban's Nick Saban, Alabama's Alabama. He's going to get a guy if he wants a guy. But, I'm sure he was getting a ton of help from the younger guys on the staff about what to do with NIL, with the transfer portal, all this. And, it's just a whole new game now. And, yeah, like you said, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I just think the game's changing. I think he maybe just isn't liking it too much, and it's the perfect time for him to call it wraps. I would have loved to see him go out with a win, but at the end of the day, Bama's Bama. He got enough. He got his own, so it's fine. But no doubt, greatest coach of our time, greatest coach of all time, and he will be missed. He will be missed. I hope he enjoys retirement. I'm sure he'll enjoy watching Bama from the sidelines, and honestly, I'm excited to see how Bama does, because I guess this is. Oh, go ahead.
I want to get Saban in a booth. I want him with a headset and a booth on.
I think that would be really. I think that would be really fun. I think that. We'd be lying if we sat here and said he probably wouldn't make a guest appearance on College Game Day. Probably this year. This year he'll probably be on there. But I think this is a good transition to talk about his replacement. Kalen DeBoer, the man who just lost the national championship, the man who took Washington from a respectable good team to the top of the mountain, a man who took Michael Penix Jr. to a career injury-prone guy who was always injured, never playing, to a Heisman finalist, the guy who probably should have won the Heisman, the man who made Washington mean something, leaves Washington after just 2 years to take the Bama job. Now, it was very controversial because of the way he did it. From what I know, he quietly took the Alabama job without telling his players first, and then had a very, very last-minute meeting with his team to tell them that he took the job, which, it happened so quickly. There were reports in the morning time saying that he was being interviewed for the job, and then there were reports that same night saying that he took it. So it happened so quickly. Saban retired, and then DeBoer took over like that. There was not even a day gap. And I think, Washington fans are definitely hurt. For sure. They're definitely hurt. I think Washington players are hurt. Actually, I know Washington players are hurt because they've made it publicly known on Twitter. I've seen multiple Washington players voice their complaints about what he did and how he did it. And again, it comes just a week after you lose the national championship. So, whatever it may be, Kalen DeBoer, new head coach at Bama, and we're seeing the waterfall. We're seeing the waterfall from Saban retiring. Saban retires, and a ton of Alabama recruits decommit. A ton of guys transfer out. Alabama loses a lot of players. They lose a lot of players. DeBoer comes in. We see Washington lose a lot of commits. A lot of guys enter the portal. A lot of guys declare for the draft if they maybe were thinking about staying. They say, well, my coach isn't here anymore, I'm going to the draft. And I think I'm interested to see how you think DeBoer will do as the Alabama head coach, because I saw an interesting tweet today, and it really made me think about how true it was. I saw a tweet today that said, that Saban is the market for Alabama, not Alabama. The reason that, and basically what that means is the reason Alabama got all these guys, the reason they got all these top recruits, the reason everyone wanted to go to Bama was because of Saban, not because it was Alabama. And I kind of see how that's true in a way. Saban leaves, a ton of 5 stars, a ton of top 4 stars decommit, a ton of guys hit the portal, they bounce out once Saban's gone. DeBoer comes in, and we see even more guys hit the portal. We see even more commits decommit. And I'm interested to see what you think about that. So I guess I'm asking you 2 questions. How do you think DeBoer will do, and what do you have to say about thinking that Saban is the market for Bama, not Alabama?
I think, well, I don't think. It's the exact same way with Kentucky basketball. It is the age-old comparison. Alabama football and Kentucky basketball are the exact same thing. I agree to that statement only a certain amount. I think that Saban has been at Alabama for so long that he has built that reputation of being one of the best coaches in the sport, not just college football, but the entire football sport. But I think that just wearing Alabama across your chest, same way wearing Kentucky across your chest, means so much. It means prestige, right? Like, let's be honest, Kentucky was winning championships well before Calipari got there. It's not like Calipari turned us around and we're winning championship after championship after championship. We're getting all the recruits, yes, but I mean, we have always been a dominant force ever since football or basketball started. And when I say this, I don't think Alabama will ever be as dominant as they were with Saban again, but I do think Bama will be still competing for SEC championships. Now, whether that is because of the transfer portal, they go heavy on the transfer portal, or maybe they stick to their roots and stick with recruits. Kind of rhymed a little bit. I think DeBoer has a ginormous job ahead of him. I hope that he knows what he's getting into, because I don't know how Seattle football is, how football is in the Northwest, but down here in the SEC, and you even see it with Louisville. Louisville's not even SEC, but Louisville's still South. Fans, boosters, they take their football extremely, extremely serious. And I couldn't imagine what it's like for Bama, because I know how it is for Kentucky basketball.
Oh, real quick, I'm sorry. You just reminded me about something that I wanted to say. Real quick, regardless of how DeBoer left Washington, regardless of what he did, whether it was scumbaggy or not, anybody, and I mean anybody, if they were genuinely being offered the keys to Alabama football, if they were being handed the keys to the Alabama football coaching job,
you're taking it.
Anybody is taking it. Anybody is taking it. And there's reports about, Kiffin denying the job, which maybe he did. There's reports about Mike Norvell rejecting the job, which, if I'm being honest, I really don't think Mike Norvell was really in the running for the job. Think about that whatever you may. There was reports about Dabo. I don't think Dabo even ever got the call, if I'm being honest. But yeah. Any coach, anybody who is being handed the keys to Alabama football coach, the head coaching job at Alabama football, being like, you are the guy, you are our guy that we're entrusting, and the money behind that key, anybody's taking it. Anybody is taking it. That's all.
Overall, you gotta. I keep saying the same thing over and over again. Like, Bama is college football. Alabama is college football. they can pay a lot more than Washington probably can, if I had to guess. I know Washington just went to a championship, but if I had to guess, Alabama can pay more. But at the same time, it holds probably a lot more weight. Now, what DeBoer did at Washington was a phenomenal job. Was it because of their quarterback or was it because of his coaching? I think it's a little bit of both, but that's neither here or there. You are in a whole different ball game now. And not that it's a higher ball game, but it's just a different ball game. Not only is it Alabama, you are in the SEC, which we have seen multiple coaches that come from non-SEC schools come into an SEC schools and get absolutely torn apart. They can never get their footing. They can't get their footing underneath them, and it's just downhill. We've seen it multiple times. So you're in the SEC. Then you have a stadium full of boosters and fans that take absolutely no shit. They aren't going to stand for losing, especially because how dominant for so long Nick Saban has been with Alabama. So I hope that he didn't bite off more than he can chew. But at the same time, my team is from the SEC. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the downfall of Alabama. It'd be a kind of a grown up moment. Be like, wow, Bama is really a bottom feeder in the SEC. That'll be the day. But I mean, I don't mind it. I really don't. If anything, I'd like to see Georgia. Well, actually, if anything, I'd like to see Tennessee never win another football game in my life. But who knows? It's really going to take time. I think that this upcoming year, this first year, they're going to struggle. I really do. Especially with adding teams like Texas and Oklahoma. The SEC is just a gauntlet this upcoming year. Ole Miss is going to be great. We know that. LSU is probably going to be pretty good. So, I mean, I think that Bama struggles. And when I say struggle, I think that we're looking at 4 losses. Which, who knows? 4 losses potentially could get you in the playoffs. We don't know yet. I don't think so, but it might. So, I think that Bama struggles this year. I would be more or less interested and see what he does with a full offseason. Not that he does have a full offseason, but kind of just a real. He didn't know he was a coach until a week ago. So I want a full okay, this is the plan for next year type of offseason. So I don't know. It's gonna be fairly interesting to see what's next for Bama.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine like a Bama without Saban, but I'm excited to see how they do. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm definitely excited for my annual July trip down to Bama to see family because I'm definitely going to have a hefty conversation with my family down there about what they think because, I mean, it's kind of obvious without me saying it, but, I mean, they're Roll Tide until they die, so I'm definitely excited to see what they think because I haven't even asked them about it. I usually talk.
And really quick, I want to say one more thing. Regardless who the coach is down there, this kind of answers your question more in depth. Alabama's probably always going to get recruits at the end of the day. They more than likely they are. It's the same thing with Kentucky. It may not be as dominant. It may not be like, okay, if you want them, you get them, but you're still going to get recruits. If Calipari left Kentucky, Kentucky is still going to be a top basketball school. Mm-hmm. It's just the way things are. But yeah, that's the only other thing to answer your one question.
Yeah. A good comparison, in my opinion, is like as far as like the always gonna get recruits type of thing. It reminds me of like Oregon or like it reminds me of like a Oregon or like a Texas, like from like not this year because they were both really good this year, but like in the years from like, you know, when Texas won the national championship in 2005, in between that point and this year when they made the playoffs again for the first time since that 2005 national championship, they're still getting 5-star recruits every year. They're still getting recruits every year. They're still getting transfers. So it's the same way in that sense. That's the way that I think about it, which I think I think we're thinking the same way. But
yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, do you have anything else to say about Saban, DeBoer, Alabama?
No, I think that Washington grabbed a good hire.
I agree.
Arizona's coach.
Yeah, I agree.
think that he did a very underrated job in Arizona, especially this past year. So I really like that acquisition for Washington. But yeah, that's about everything I got.
Yeah, Jed Fish hopefully can keep Washington kind of up there. Maybe not, national championship type up there, but I think what Jed Fish did at Arizona was really good this year, especially because nobody saw Arizona coming into this year. And the way they kind of just popped on the scene, like out of nowhere, was very impressive. So I think Jed Fish is a hell of a hire. But one more thing I do have to say about Alabama, this is the last thing, I promise. But I'm interested to see like what they do with like coordinators and stuff, because when you think about Nick Saban, I mean, he was able to pull coordinators from anywhere and whoever he wanted. Whoever he wanted as a coordinator, even if it was just for a year, he was getting them. I mean, he was pulling guys from the NFL, just being like, hey, I know you've got an OC job in the NFL right now, but why don't you come be the OC at Alabama? And people would do it. So,
right.
And DeBoer's not going to hold that type of power. I just think it's obvious. Yeah, not yet at least. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. But, I mean, if he was able to turn Penix into what Penix became, then I see no reason as to why he can't turn Milroe into that. But moving on from that, though, Parker, I guess before we get into the big leagues and the news that happened over in the NFL, do we have any local news on our guys that we maybe just want to bring up really quickly?
Well, I know you do with Louisville. I know Louisville is still going heavy with the portal, which I'll let you talk about it because you obviously know it a lot better than I do. To be fair, I haven't been paying attention to Louisville's recruits. As far as Kentucky goes, the only real news that has been kind of said about our football program recently is Liam Cohen, who any viewer out there knows that I am a huge fan of Liam Cohen. I love him to death. But he has interviewed for 2 different jobs, one being the Atlanta Falcons, and the other offensive coordinator job. I should state offensive coordinator jobs for that. And then also he has interviewed for Ohio State. I don't know numbers also, obviously. I'm sure both of them can probably pay way more than Kentucky can. But it would be a very sad time to see Liam Cohen go. Especially, I think that we'll be all right this year, this upcoming year. I think we'll be fine without him. But, I mean, we saw the difference between having Cohen and not having Cohen, just looking at Will Levis's first year and Will Levis's second year. It was like night and day, our offense. So I really want him to stay. I really hope that he does decide to stay. I guess the other thing with that would be what's going on with Kentucky coaches, man. Like, football coaches. Like, I mean, obviously we had that thing a few months back with Stoops taking the A&M job. We didn't know and then he backed out of it, supposedly. Whatever happened there, I don't think anybody really knows the truth exactly. And then, obviously now with Liam Cohen, and I'm just like, I like Stoops, I like Cohen, but we got to find somebody that wants to be at Kentucky, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, like you said earlier with the Alabama job, more than likely if an NFL team comes calling you or Ohio State comes calling you, no matter who your coach is, how much he loves the program, money is going to talk. The money is going to talk. And I had this debate with one of our buddies a few months back, it was about a month back whenever Stoops did take that job, or supposedly take the job at A&M, with a Louisville fan that they were like, oh, Jeff Brom would never. I'm sorry, but if Jeff Brom is offered double than what he's making at Louisville, he's not staying. He's going to take that job regardless. I'm sorry. But so, I mean, if that is the case, I can't complain because I know I would do the same thing. Josh, I'm sure you would do the same thing if you were in their shoes. money is going to talk at the end of the day. I just hope that it's not a crazy offer where he decides to take it and he would prefer to come back to Kentucky, because he has said in the past how much he does love Kentucky. He was at Kentucky, left for an NFL job, and then literally his words was like, I loved the university so much that I wanted to come back. So I mean, like, he has expressed his love for the University of Kentucky, but I mean, that's really the only thing about Kentucky football. The only thing I've been really keeping up on as far as what's that situation like. So yeah, I hope Liam Cohen, if you are watching this, please come back. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So the only thing that I really have to bring up about Louisville, which I don't want. I really don't want to. I'm not trying to like toot our own horn or anything like too much here, but just Jeff Brom's like portal skills. He's been one of the top examples of like how to do the portal correctly, in my opinion. I mean, he's going in there, he's getting guys that maybe you might consider just role players, and then he's also getting top guys who are some of the top guys in the portal, like Thor Griffith, Penny Boone, who me and Parker have talked about extensively before, on and off air. Just today, he flipped Tyler Barron from Ole Miss, who has the second best portal class, if you look at On3 and Rivals. But what he's been able to do with Louisville through the portal is nothing but a great example, is the only thing I can really say. I mean, on 247, I think we have the second best portal class behind Colorado. And then on Rivals and On3, we have the number one portal class. So just a great job by Brom. I don't want to get my hopes up too much. I know I was telling you at the gym today, Parker. I don't want to get my hopes up too much because I got to see something. You know what I mean? I got to see a game from him. I got to see if we can mesh it all together in one, because, these guys are coming from different schools, different schemes, different coaches. They know nothing about Louisville football. So I got to see what they do in the offseason. I got to see how they train. I got to see what they can do. And then once game one rolls around and I can watch them perform in week one and see how they do, I'll make up my mind there. But
I mean, you just have to have it in the back of your mind. I mean, look at this year's Kentucky team. We had one of the best transfer portal classes in the nation, and every year the transfer portal is getting bigger and bigger. But I mean, we had a phenomenal transfer portal class. We had another 4-star quarterback in Devin Leary come in, and we thought that we were going to be a 2-loss, maybe a 3-loss team this season, and it just. Obviously, Ray Davis panned out 100%, but just, going to a different school, learning all new plays. A lot of people, if they are coming from different conferences, it's different play style as far as speed, as far as aggression. So, I mean, there's so many different things. Like, even though that you have a transfer that is a so-called top transfer, you don't 100% know if they're going to pan out, right? Devin Leary is the ultimate prime example of all of it. We thought he was the saving grace. We were so excited for him to come in, take over from Will Levis, and this kind of just like passing the torch. We're going to still be a top SEC school, and a thud. It was a complete thud. So, I mean, obviously, if it does pan out, like we have before, whenever we lost 3 games, like 2-3 years ago, whenever it was because of our transfer portal class. So, I mean, that's something just keep in your back of your mind, I think. But in my opinion, I think Louisville, clearly the biggest, in bold letters, their biggest question mark is your quarterback. When he plays, he's good. He is good. I think you said he's never lost a game or something similar.
When he plays, I think he's only lost maybe 1 game, and I think it was a bowl game.
Yeah. So he has been really good when he does play, but I think every single year he has been the starter.
But when has he played is the question.
Right. And I think that's why the question mark is so big.
Yeah, I think the most games he's played in a season might be 6. And then which, like that's not his fault. A player getting injury, season-ending injury after season-ending injury isn't his fault. It's just a string of extreme bad luck. But at the same time, you can be worried about his injury history. But you got to stay optimistic, which is what I'm trying to keep myself, from getting too down about his injury history, because, I find myself sometimes being like, well, he's really good when he plays, but he's just going to get hurt after 4 games. But you can't think that way, because we've seen it. Michael Penix Jr., season-ending injury after season-ending injury, I think like 3 years in a row. And then he transfers to Washington for his last year of eligibility and balls the fuck out and does not get hurt and plays insane. Which, I'm not comparing Shuck to Michael Penix Jr. at all. I'm just saying, we've seen it before with players who have an injury history, are written off, and then they go somewhere else and ball out. And, they're fine. But I'm keeping myself optimistic because I know that when he has played, he's very rarely lost. And this is over the span of 2 different schools. So I'm keeping optimistic about him, but we'll see.
I don't mean to be so negative, but also at the same time, you referred to Michael Penix. I'm going to, again, refer to Devin Leary. Somebody that had injury after injury after injury at NC State. He was healthy all year long, or we thought he was healthy, but obviously it was not the same Devin Leary, whether that was because of the offense, whether it was because of the defense we were playing, or it was a nagging injury that he never 100% healed, or he just didn't have the mobility like he once did.
Yeah.
So, I don't mean to bring that up in a negative way, but
no,
that's something else to think about.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. You just don't know what you're going to get, and that's with any player. Yeah. Penny Boone, who was one of the best running backs in the nation this year, you and me have talked great things about him. He could come in and be a complete dud at running back. You really don't know. You just don't know. But that's what's kind of fun about the transfer portal, is you're kind of gambling on these guys to come in and produce and be good, and you don't know. And we arguably took one of the biggest gambles in going and getting Thor Griffith, an Ivy League guy who everyone's praising, not just Louisville fans, like national media praising him about how good he was in the Ivy Leagues. This ain't the Ivy Leagues. This is big time D1 football that he's coming into. So a huge gamble on him, but I'm very excited. I wish it was July right now, because that means football would only be a month away. But I'm so excited for this upcoming football season.
Major news, NCAA 24 has a release date, July 12th of this year. That just popped into my head. That's all I got to say. Major news, though. Probably the biggest news on this entire episode.
Yeah, seriously. I can't believe we haven't brought that up before. Which, actually, no, I'll save it. I'll save it. Maybe at the end of the episode, we'll mention it really quickly. But yeah, I'm very excited about college football. It's panning out to be a very good season yet again. This season was very fun. I know me and Parker plan on doing way more traveling, maybe even doing some game day vlogs. Not necessarily because it's just fun. Me and Parker are both 21 now. We can both kind of just do whatever we really want to, and we've already got plans to go to a couple games, being the Kentucky-Tennessee game and then the Louisville-Notre Dame game. And then obviously the Louisville-Kentucky game at Kroger. But yeah, I'm sure we're gonna make more plans to go to more games. And that's not just college either. That's NFL too. I'm very excited for this upcoming season, for not only football and the sports in general, but also just for me and Parker and this podcast, because I know me and him have big plans for it. We talk. I know it's been like a month since the last episode, but I promise me and Parker have been talking like almost every day about things we can do, like to, grow, but also just to make it more fun for us. So not every single episode is just us sitting here not together and just talking over Discord, and which is fun, but you know what I mean.
Right.
But
right.
Moving on though, Parker, I think it's time we get into some NFL action.
Yeah, we got that. Yeah, just to let everybody know, that was just half of the episode.
Yeah,
We have
half. We got a whole another half. Okay, so let's start off. So I know we missed kind of the end of the season, but because it was like the last week of the season, there's nothing really to talk about because, none of the starters really played. So what we're going to start off with, Parker, if it is okay with you, we're going to start off with the Super Wildcard weekend games and who won, what we noticed, because I know I watched every game. I don't know about you, but it was a fun weekend. It was a really fun weekend for the NFL as well.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. What games did you notice? What did you notice from any of the games? Just, it can be one thing, it can be a bunch of things.
So, I have a lot to talk about, actually. We could talk about any of the games, but the first one I do want to mention is my former team. And let's get this straight. My former team. I am no longer a fan of them. And I haven't been at the beginning of the season because I knew this shit would happen. I knew it would happen. The Dallas Cowboys fall to the Green Bay Packers. Not just a tight wild card upset loss, because it is the playoffs. Upsets can happen. Ask my Miami Heat last year. Upsets can happen, but Green Bay went into AT&T Stadium, where the Cowboys play, where they were undefeated all year long. And to be honest, no one really touched them at home, and absolutely wiped the floor with every single Cowboy. Yes, laid down the law. They laid down the law. So that's the most intriguing in my opinion.
If you look at the scoreboard of that game, some people, if you look at it, you might be like, oh, they only lost by like 2 scores, which is, the Cowboys should have won by 2 scores, not the other way around to begin with. But even then, the scoreboard does not do the game justice because the
Green
Packers
Bay put in their backups in the fourth.
The Packers curb stomped the Cowboys. The Packers, from the jump of the game, were on it. They did not let the Cowboys breathe. And God, it was a very impressive game from the Packers. Just all around. The run game was incredible. Jordan Love was incredible. The defense played incredible. Just a great game by the Packers. There's nothing else to it. Just a great game by the Packers.
I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but something else. I know I was high on Michigan all year. They made it to the championship. Somebody I was extremely low on all year, just because we've seen it time and time again, is Dak Prescott. He had a great year. He had a phenomenal regular season, like he has done in the past. But the reason I was so low on him is because the dude flat out can't perform in the playoffs. He can't do it. And I know you think him throwing 4 touchdowns, throwing for 400 passing yards in a random Week 7 matchup against the Giants is the saving grace. Dak Prescott is an MVP candidate. I'm speaking to Dallas Cowboys fans here, by the way. I know you think that way. That doesn't mean crap in January. And I was watching SportsCenter the other day, and they told me, or they said, not me personally, but they said a very interesting statistic. Dak Prescott has a winning record in every month that football is played besides January. Besides January, he has a winning record. What is in January? The playoffs. And the fact that he has a losing record in the playoffs, but a winning, it tells me everything I need to know. He is just, he's like James Harden for basketball. James Harden, MVP. He's won an MVP. He's won scoring titles, but he can't perform in the playoffs. He is historically bad in the playoffs. So is Dak Prescott. And people are like, we don't need to pay Dak after the game. They're like, we don't need to pay Dak and whatnot. You guys know you guys already paid.
You already did.
You
already did.
You guys thought that he is the answer. When I would have seemingly been one of the lone voices out here saying, no, Dak Prescott is not the answer. I don't know who is the answer, but it's not Dak. Dak is it's unfortunate because Dak is so likable. He can be so likable. He is the face of the franchise. He's a great guy off the field. And there's not many quarterbacks in the league right now. Patrick Mahomes is one of them. I think Joe Burrow potentially could be one of them. He really is. A lot of people like Joe Burrow, but not too many quarterbacks can really be the face of America's football team and do it so well. And Dak Prescott can. But he can't win in the playoffs. So you want him because he is so marketable, or do you want a quarterback that can win championships? And it looked like Dallas took the latter.
And if you're a box score watcher, you might not realize how bad he actually played. He went 41 for 60 for 403 yards and 3 touchdowns. If you see that, you're asking yourself, how the fuck did they lose? Because that, if you read that, that's an incredible game. But then you see that he threw 2 interceptions. If you're box watching, you're like, okay, but he threw 3 touchdowns. This is where watching the games comes into play, because not just one of those interceptions was a pick six. They were both pick sixes. And
no, one of them was brought back to like the 5. That wasn't.
Oh, was it?
6, but it was brought.
Was
to
it?
the 5,
Was it the Jair one? Did they call that one back to the 5?
Yeah, the one that he dived. Yeah.
Regardless, the 5-yard line, they were at like midfield. So putting them in great scoring position, and then the other interception being a pick six, that's 14 points right there that he single-handedly caused. Not to mention, the defense played poorly all night as well. I mean, the defense gave up 3 rushing touchdowns and then 3 passing touchdowns. 6 total touchdowns by the Packers offense. And then Dak gave up 2. Which I don't have much to say about that game. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm happy they lost, just because I find Cowboys fans annoying when every year they're like, it's our year, when they should know damn well it's not. But it is what it is.
And it's just so funny. And I hold it a little bit more personal, because I was one of those fans that was like, all right, this is our year. We're gonna be so good. And maybe because this is the first year I've kind of been on the outside looking in, that this year felt like Cowboys fans really thought that it was this year. They thought this was the best team that they've had in so long. And maybe it's like this every year. Maybe they sound like this every year. And I'll find out here come next season. But they just thought so highly of this offense, and just to throw up a dud. And again, this also happened. This happened earlier this year. Dak Prescott went into Philadelphia and played the Eagles. If you looked at the box score, Dak Prescott had a great game. And me and my own father had this conversation, because he didn't watch the game. I watched the game personally, but he was like, well, it looked like Dak Prescott had a great game. He did this, and this. That same game, he single-handedly cost them that game. He I forgot exactly what it was, but like, he could have had a touchdown, but instead he ran out of bounds. Whatever it was right at the end of the game, ended up costing them that game. But he threw for 400 yards. He threw for 5 touchdowns, or whatever it was. There was an L in the win-loss column. So I don't want to be like, I told you so, but I told you so. I've seen it multiple times. I don't know why the rest of the Cowboys fan base hasn't seen it yet. I don't know why Jerry Jones hasn't seen it yet. Dak isn't the answer. He isn't. He's great at the regular season.
Speaking of Jerry Jones, that's the most mad I've seen that man after a game, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because this
he was pissed, and like that's the most mad I've ever seen him.
Because I mean, there's just so many things. Like obviously the recent history between Dallas and Green Bay in the playoffs. Green Bay has owned Dallas, and every one of those up until this point has been with Aaron Rodgers. So now Aaron Rodgers is gone. They have a quarterback in his first ever postseason game. Dude, it's like I'm gonna take your lunch money here. We're at home where we haven't lost all year, and it's honestly we have dominated teams at home. Any team that comes away, good or bad teams, we have absolutely dominated at home, and Green Bay just wiped the floor with them. This was one of the most embarrassing losses in Dallas history, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, another embarrassing loss that I noticed, which I'm also proud that it happened, and I know you're proud that it happened. I'm a little sad though, just because one of the guys publicly announced his retirement after the game, but the Eagles fall to the Buccaneers 32-9. This was also a game where one team just did not come to play, and the other one just came out swinging from the start. Baker Mayfield played great. Jalen Hurts did not play great. And if you look at the box score, actually, you can kind of tell the difference. The Buccaneers' defense was just stuffing the run all day. Swift couldn't get anything going. The pass game, I know Devontae Smith kind of went off, but, I mean, just really, I mean, the Bucs defense just took it to the Eagles. I mean, they even stopped the tush push, which take that as you may. But, I mean, Baker played great. Rashad White had a good game. Multiple receivers played great. I mean, and then, like I said, the defense played great as well. And just, I don't know if maybe the home field advantage for the Bucs played a bigger part than maybe I'm thinking it did, but man, the Eagles just did not look ready. And I'm happy that this loss happened, not only because I just like to talk shit to my friends that are Eagles fans, but also because I don't find Nick Sirianni to be that great of a head coach, and I think he may be gone now that they lost like that. I think he might be gone. It's not official or anything, and I haven't seen really any rumors about it, but I have a feeling that he could be, and that makes me happy because I really don't think he's that great of a head coach, and he's kind of just a dickhead in my opinion. And I don't really think Eagles fans are that fond of him, at least not right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I think they want to see him gone too, which is really funny because last year they were praising him.
Yeah. I think that this Philadelphia Eagles season, not just that game, but this season, needs to be studied in a lab. You're telling me this team started 10-1, couldn't get 12 wins. A team that starts 10-1 can't even get 12 wins. I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't think that has ever happened before. I definitely could be wrong. I'm sure it has, but it's the first time I've noticed it ever, because it was just like, okay, they lost a game, they lost 2 games, okay, they lost 3 games, they're going to get back on track, this is one of the best teams in the NFL, and they just never did, and they had some really bad losses. I think I told you, Josh, that I thought the Eagles were going to win this game. To me personally, just watching sports for as long as I have, I was like, okay, one team is clearly better than the other team. Regardless of what happened in the regular season, the playoffs are a whole new ball game. Anything can happen. And anything did happen, and the underdog, so-called underdog, even though they had home field, they won, and they won in dominating fashion. I can't wrap my head around what has happened in Philadelphia over the past 3 months to really give a solid explanation why they lost that game. I don't know. I think it's actually crazy who like the Eagles suck. They suck. They straight up suck. I mean,
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I think Baker Mayfield has got such a crazy amount of hate in his NFL career. I don't know if you feel the same way or not. I love Baker Mayfield. I think he is so fun. He is so energetic. He loves the sport of football. And, I mean, yeah, he hasn't been perfect. Obviously, his time in Carolina really wasn't good. But, I mean, he did the same thing a few years back with Cleveland. He took Cleveland to the playoffs and went crazy in that wild card round. We've seen that he's done it before. Now, I hope he does it again, but I don't know if he will. I mean, Baker Mayfield is really good. He's a really, really good quarterback. And you told me, and you kind of pointed things out to me that I really wasn't even seeing. I mean, like, his regular season statistics were really good. And now he's backing it up, unlike Dak Prescott. He is backing his regular season up with his playoff performance. And this is the second time in his career we've seen it. I really like this Tampa team. And, we'll talk a little bit more about next upcoming matchups.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I like Tampa.
Mm-hmm. So I won't really say too much about this game because there's specifically one team and one player that I really want to talk about. But just really quickly, at least on my behalf, the Rams-Lions game was the best game out of the weekend by far. Yes. It was very entertaining, very close through and through. Both QBs came out swinging, and they did not stop. They just deep bomb after deep bomb all game. Neither of them threw an interception. It was very good quarterback play that game and very great receiving play to watch. I mean, Puka snapped, Amon-Ra snapped. It was incredible to watch. And the Lions snapped their 33-year losing streak in the playoffs, and they finally got one at home nonetheless. So, congratulations, Lions. You guys did play very dirty, and I don't really like that, so I hope you guys kind of get curb stomped in this next round. But congratulations on getting your first win in forever. And by the way, I don't know if you saw anything that I'm talking about, but
yes, I did.
The internet is pretty upset with the way the Lions played because they made some dirty hits, I guess is a simple way to put it.
I also agree that this was probably the best game of the weekend. And you really wouldn't think that whenever you sit there and look, there wasn't a single touchdown scored in the second half, which is crazy. And it was still that good of a game because it was it had everything you wanted. It was one team, whether it was the Rams or the Lions, they would drive down the field, get all the way to where they're right in the red zone, and then the defense side would kick in, they would hold them, let them kick a field goal. And that's how that whole game was, it felt like. It was so high-powered offense, but such high-powered defense at the same time. It was a fun game. I hope, yeah.
I was just going to say, and the greatest part about it is that it ended with the Rams having the ball. The Rams had a chance to win the game with a game-winning field goal. Obviously, they didn't get there, but a great ending to watch. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on about this weekend specifically, and then maybe we could talk about some coaches in the NFL, but CJ Stroud has a hell of a game and leads the Texans to a 45-14 victory over the Cleveland Browns at home, and the Texans move on in the playoffs. And, we've been glazing CJ Stroud all year, it feels like. But, he deserves it. I mean, he played incredible. 16 for 21, 274 yards, and 3 touchdowns, no picks. Just a great game. And the fact he's a rookie is mind-boggling because he's playing like a veteran.
What's more impressive is he's done it arguably without his favorite target in Tank Dell. Now, Nico Collins has stepped up tremendously, but before Tank Dell went out, Tank Dell was getting 10-plus catches or targets a game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he literally has done all of this without that guy, and a lot of people said that this Browns defense was the best defense in the NFL. And for him to put up 45 points without throwing an interception, nothing but praise to C.J. Stroud, in my opinion. And he has got his hand full. I mean, if you think that the Browns had a good defense,
just wait till this weekend. Just wait till this weekend.
Do you have anything more to say about this Texan game really quick?
No, I'm done with that. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. This is one of the best playoffs I think I've ever watched. And it's weird that I say that because I feel like 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, me and you were saying these playoffs are fairly one-dimensional, especially in the NFC side. We thought it was like, okay, it's either going to be San Fran, Dallas, or Philly. One of those 3 teams are going to advance. And now, 2 of those 3 teams are already out. We don't know what San Fran is going to come out with. I mean, we saw what Dallas did. We don't know how San Fran's going to come out. I mean, which if San Fran loses, by the way, if the Packers beat San Fran, my head might explode. Like the fact that the team coming out of the NFC could be the Packers, Bucks, or Lions is
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, literally we're like, okay, it's gonna go one of those 3 ways. Dallas, San Fran, or Philly are gonna make it out 110%. And now I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then on the other side, it might even be better. Like Houston and Baltimore. I mean, we have a quarterback trying to he's done everything he can in the regular season. Probably gonna win another MVP, but cannot win in the playoffs. Is he gonna prove everybody wrong? We have going up against a rookie quarterback that has done nothing but succeed. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes.
For the 5th time in a row.
But it's in Buffalo. It's never been played in Buffalo. That is a different atmosphere. It's still going to be cold. Sorry, Kansas City. You're not going to Miami to where it's warm. It's going to be cold again, but Bills.
And also, arguably, a Chiefs team that has struggled significantly more than any other Chiefs team that Josh Allen's had to play.
Like, I mean,
but at the same time, though, real quick, a better defense than he's ever had to play against the Chiefs.
Yes, 100%, 100%. This is especially out of all their Super Bowl teams, this Kansas City defense I think is one of the best. Mm-hmm. I know some people don't want to see Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes face off. Not me. I could watch them play in the playoffs every year until both of them retire because I get so excited. It's like it's damn near a national holiday at this point.
It's fun. It's fun.
When it's normally a shootout. It's win or go homes on the line. Obviously, I mean, I love it.
And it usually goes down to the wire.
And then on the NFC side, like we said, we already talked about San Fran and Green Bay, but then we have Detroit and Tampa Bay. I think that's all that needs to be said. Detroit and Tampa Bay.
Real quick, Chiefs Bills. Didn't we literally have like the Mahomes 13-second drive one year, and then the very next year we had that like controversial like overtime game?
Yes, I think this is their 3rd straight year playing each other.
So if we have those 2 endings back to back, I'm looking forward to what this game has in store.
And on top of all of that, the controversy in the regular season, whenever the Bills and the Chiefs played each other, and remember when Patrick Mahomes threw that hissy fit and whatnot?
Yeah.
All 3 of those games, though, were all in Kansas City. Never once has Kansas City had to go to Buffalo to play them. It is going to be rowdy there, dude. It is going to be so hectic. I mean, like, I can't. I'm so excited for this weekend. It's not even funny because it is going to be an amazing NFL divisional round. Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
Yeah, and then regardless of who comes out of the AFC for the AFC Championship, regardless of what that game turns out to be, the QB matchup is going to be great. CJ Stroud versus Allen or Mahomes, Lamar versus Allen or Mahomes, both situations are just incredible QB matchups. And I mean, if you ask me, I think it's obvious who I want to make it out of the AFC. I really want Lamar to get his because, just Louisville fan, I think he definitely deserves it. He's done a lot for that team. And I want to see him prove the haters wrong because he hasn't done anything in the playoffs. Like, he has not won in the playoffs. And so I want to see him get his. But the NFC is super exciting too. And it's just, it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
I mean, for Lamar's sake, if Lamar can somehow find his way into the Super Bowl, which I say somehow, like it's going to be hard. I mean, it'll be hard, don't get me wrong, but like it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like Baltimore could easily go back to the Super Bowl this year. If that is the case, it would just like sum up Lamar Jackson's career to a T. Like he gets drafted and everyone's like, he can't be a quarterback in the NFL. He goes crazy. People are still saying he can't throw the ball. All he can do is run. He throws he's one of the best passers in the league this year, and now people are like, oh, well, he can't win in the playoffs. Well, if he can win in the playoffs this year, and that's coming from a Kentucky fan. There is absolutely nothing you can say about Lamar Jackson that can warrant him not being not only a top 5 but a top 3 quarterback in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, a big thing for me too, as well, is like, I think a lot of people, if he manages to win a Super Bowl this year, I think a lot of people are gonna make the defense carried you excuse, which,
I mean, it is a good defense.
It is a very good defense. It's one of the best defenses we've seen in a while. Like it's a defense that when you think of Baltimore, you're like, yeah, that is what Baltimore is known for. Like that's what this defense reminds me of. But what Odell did passing wise in the regular season without having a single receiver over 1,000 yards is very impressive. He doesn't have a 1,000 plus yard receiver on his team, yet he was still one of the best passers in the league with one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the league, one of the best passer ratings in the league too, which just very impressive, and it makes me wonder if he did have that true like 1,000 plus yard, which by the way, no Mark Andrews after the halfway point in the year, practically.
Yeah.
Which Isaiah Likely came out swinging. I mean, he's a great.
Is it because Isaiah Likely is so good, or is it because Lamar Jackson made Isaiah Likely so good?
I mean, personally, I think Isaiah Likely is really good, but you could be however good you want. If you don't have a good QB at the helm, you're just going to be another guy being wasted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think Lamar definitely elevated Isaiah Likely. But regardless of if Lamar gets eliminated or not, I really hope he does not get eliminated. It's going to be fun, and I'm still going to watch because this Super Bowl is panning out to be a very big shocker. A very big shocker, and it could be fun.
In my opinion, I think that I love CJ Stroud a lot, but I don't think that Texans team is quite ready to make that deep of a playoff run. I think that they do lose to Baltimore this upcoming weekend. But the guy that I am looking for...
unbelievable if they do. If they make it to the Super Bowl, then fucking build that man a statue right now. But yeah, go ahead. City.
The guy that I am more or less rooting for the most... Baker, yeah, but Josh Allen. I think that Josh Allen is another guy that has got a excessive amount of hate in his career. He did have a rocky start to this season. He did throw a lot of interceptions. He was very, very, very turnover prone. But, I mean, if you want to talk about what Lamar has done to Baltimore, look what Josh Allen has done to Buffalo. Like he turned that into a winning culture seemingly overnight, it felt like. I mean, Josh, I would really love to see Josh Allen win. I like him. I feel like he's a likable dude off the field. So all in all, that's who I am, I think, ultimately rooting for, is I would like to see Josh Allen get that first ring.
Yeah, and like you said, he played really good. So, I mean, yeah, the interceptions are what they are, but it just shows that he's willing to gamble. And
Right.
they're 12-6, and they're still in the playoffs. So, obviously, it's paying off. But,
Yeah.
Parker, moving on. I think we got some coaches to talk about.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, I'll name them off. I think there's very clearly one that's the most surprising. But regardless, Staley's gone from LA. That happened in the regular season. Everyone knew that happened.
Yes.
The Raiders have to fill their head coaching job. I think Antonio Pierce is going to get that job anyways. I don't think they're going to replace him. Arthur Smith in Atlanta, he's gone, fired. Mike Vrabel, fired, gone from Tennessee, which was shocking to me at least. Let's see, who else am I forgetting? Am I forgetting anybody?
Yeah, the biggest one.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm trying to think of, like, other ones. Before I get to him.
No.
Oh.
As of...
Oh, my God, why am I forgetting? Pete Carroll, gone, fired for Seattle. That was kind of shocking. It looks like he kind of more or less stepped down rather than actually got fired. He's still a part of the franchise. He just didn't feel like coaching anymore, I guess. But those are the main five, other than Bill Belichick and the Patriots mutually agreed to part ways. And now Bill Belichick is looking like he's still going to coach in the NFL rather than retire, which is what I thought he was going to do. But he is not. It looks like he's still trying to coach, and it seems like there's a couple front runners, namely one of them, which is relatively close to us here in Kentucky. But what do you have to say about any of those coaches? Just any of them.
Really quick, for my take on Belichick is I also thought he was going to retire. But then I saw a statistic. He's only 12 wins away from being the most winning coach in NFL history. Only 12.
Okay. Well, you could just go somewhere for 1 year then and have a great year.
Exactly. And even if Atlanta seems it potentially could be a front runner. So if he does go to Atlanta, I don't know if that's a 12-win team. I don't know. But if not 1 year, definitely 2 years would definitely get up to him. So, I mean, if I could easily see Belichick just trying to...
I think they are with the coach like Belichick. I think they are.
It depends on how Ritter plays, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. That's the thing. We could see him go a different direction in the draft or something, but we'll see. I think it's a very fun team to see him take over just because of how many young guys they have on that team. And if he does take control of Atlanta, I'm very interested to see what happens to Bijan, because Belichick doesn't really have a great history as far as like running backs go, and Bijan's not really a name that you kind of just throw to the side, you know what I mean? So I'm very interested to see. What I will say is if he takes over the Falcons, Kyle Pitts might actually become what he was drafted at, which is very exciting because he's been criminally underused. Same with Drake London, but same with Bijan. Yeah, I think all of them are going to become great potentially if Belichick does take over. But
at the same time, though, you gotta just keep in mind that, I mean, like, he is the same age as Saban. We saw Saban walk away this year. How much more does Belichick have in the gas tank before he just is like, I just want to wake up at noon every day and go fishing, I mean, how much more is if he goes to Atlanta, which
I don't think Belichick has any hobbies. I think he's a robot. I think he just, instead of fishing or like having a nice drive with his wife, I think he just watches film all day. Like I don't think he does anything. Genuinely, I don't think he does anything. Like,
and it might be
like he's just what Mike McDaniel will be in 40 years. Like Mike McDaniel is just a young Bill Belichick, just a nerd who loves football. Like, and it's great. Like Bill Belichick's hilarious unintentionally, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think the fact that he parted ways with the Patriots and then there was immediate news about him interviewing with other jobs and everything like that makes me think that he has like a little bit more in the tank than people think. Like, I'm thinking like 5 years type shit.
And I mean, how long? Belichick has been coaching well before we were even born.
Oh yeah. Late in the 90s. Yeah.
I'm sure it is extremely hard to just walk away.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously I'm sure if Belichick had his way, he probably would not leave New England, if I had to guess. So, like, I mean, going into that season, he had a secure job at New England, and then all of a sudden, reports came out, the front office came to him, they said, you know what, I think it's best if we just go our own ways here. I mean, out of left field, his whole dynasty, his whole world has just came crashing down. And I'm sure it is extremely hard for him to be like, you know what? I don't want to be a part of football anymore. And especially if he is just an absolute football nerd. He absolutely loves the game, every aspect of the game. I mean, you have to mentally prepare yourself. Like, you have to have a whole season, a whole farewell tour, And my only thing is, if he does go to Atlanta is definitely, they are not going to be a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they'll be a Super Bowl contender in 1 year. It is going to be a project. How much more does Belichick have? Does he have enough to complete this project in Atlanta to bring them to the promised land? Or is he just going to kind of set down a nice, firm foundation and really set the next guy up for straight succession in Atlanta?
Wouldn't it be crazy if before everything happened and like Belichick knew that he was probably out of New England, like he knew they were going to kind of mutually part ways, wouldn't it be wild if he was just like, hey, Saban, let's go coach the same team, brother. And then him and Saban just took over Atlanta. Which it would kind of be hard because they're both defensive coaches, but I mean that would be fucking hilarious if they both just took over the same team.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Other coaches around the league. Pete Carroll leaving Seattle, I kind of felt like I wasn't as shocked with Pete Carroll. Seattle, they gained a little bit of ground after losing Russ. Obviously with Geno, I think they made the playoffs last year, if I'm not mistaken. But it seems like for like about 5 years now, Seattle has kind of just been running in place. Yeah. They haven't been really gaining any traction. I just think Pete Carroll's another fairly old coach. Yeah. I think his time was it just didn't shock me as much.
Which he's still a part of. He's still a part of the franchise. I don't know like how, but they've made it known that he's not actually like gone from the franchise. Like he's still working with Seattle, just not as the head coach. Which again, I don't know what that means, but he's not actually fully gone.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see where they pull these coaches from, though, because I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know where many candidates are. Like, there's Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Lions. There's, I guess, there's Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. Obviously, Belichick, if you want to go after him. But other than that, like, I really don't know of any other like coaching candidates that these teams could be going after.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, if they need a coach, they're just going to start pulling from below them and grabbing college football coaches.
Yeah.
If that really is what it comes down to. I mean, I'm sure if they can't fill any spots, I'm sure there are some NFL offensive or defensive coordinators that are more than happy to take over some of these teams.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, realistically, I'm sure we'll hear about them hiring the OC or DC from a random team in the league, but
right,
because that's just typically how it works. But yeah, I just don't know of any like big name like candidates for any of these jobs right now, which I'm actually interested to see what route Vrabel takes, because I didn't think he'd be fired from the Titans, but now that he is, I'm very interested. I'm interested to see where he goes, because he actually played in New England, but New England actually already placed Belichick with their linebackers coach, Gerard Mayo, who also played for the Patriots. So I'm very interested to see what Vrabel does, because I don't feel like he's done coaching. Like, I feel like he's definitely a guy that wants to keep coaching. So I'm wondering if maybe he goes to college now, or maybe he goes to another NFL team. But I'm very interested. Crazy.
I see Seattle as a very similar team to Tennessee. They have very similar aspects about them. I could see him going to Seattle, in my opinion. It's just, I mean, I think that Tennessee kind of did them dirty. I don't know if it could have been a mutual agreement as well. But I feel like they kind of did them dirty just because they didn't let Levis have a full year. Really, truly a full year. I mean, they have some really, really good pieces over there in Tennessee. I just don't feel like they really gave him a full shot, and because they did have a couple of disappointing years. Whenever Derrick Henry was on the top of his game, Ryan Tannehill was phenomenal. They just didn't do anything in the playoffs. So, I mean, like, they have a lot of those pieces from those playoff teams, but, I mean, you have a whole new quarterback that brings youth and athleticism. I just think that they kind of did him dirty, but I could easily see Seattle being a top candidate for Vrabel, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that actually seems to be like all we've got. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No. I think there is. I wouldn't mind, which I kind of want to save it for the next strictly NFL episode, because I think it could take a little bit longer than we are thinking. But I do want to start getting into some NFL draft. Maybe do our own like mock draft type of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of, because I'm really excited, because there's just a endless world of possibilities that could potentially happen with these NFL teams in the draft. So I want to kind of leave that for another episode. And then obviously, like I've said, I've emphasized so much, I'm so excited for this weekend, this divisional round. I think it's going to be some really, really good football being played, and I won't be able to talk about any of it until next week. And then college football, kind of slowing down. I mean, there is still a few more transfers out there, but I mean, we're not going to make a whole video talking about them. So, I mean, I think for as far as today, this is a good summary from where we left off and kind of just touching on stuff that we kind of missed or weren't talking about while it was happening.
All right. Well, with that being said, I guess I'll go ahead and say some things that I've got to say. As far as other sports, I know like we've preached in the past, and like at the beginning of when me and Parker first started doing this, we are going to start doing basketball. Just got to give us some time, because, you know, obviously it's the playoffs. It's the prime time point in the NFL. So just, you know, let us kind of ride out this NFL wave, and then after that, we'll start getting into the NBA and college, because me and Parker have started watching basketball more. We are paying attention to it. We are learning it. We're getting the information we need.
Actually, for my 21st birthday, I went to my first ever Miami Heat game, and it was in Miami, and it was a absolute,
and it looked great.
Time.
It
was fun.
So we will be getting those basketball episodes out, college and NBA. We don't know how the scheduling is going to be. We may just mesh them all into one episode. We really don't know yet. But other than that, I know I am, and I know Parker is too. We're really excited for 2024, for what is to come. Like I said, we've got multiple ideas. Me and Parker are talking about it all the time. We really do care about, like, what direction we want to take this in, and we're definitely going to try. I mean, I know, just, I guess this is a little bit personal, but I know sometimes, like, I don't know how you feel, Parker, but like when we're doing this and then we like post it and we look at like view count or whatever it may be, it kind of feels like maybe we're talking to a brick wall on here when we do this. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because genuinely we really just enjoy sitting down and talking about and enjoy talking sports. So, but at the same time, we do want to grow this, so that does bring me to my next point, which I think Parker has already given me the okay to do this. I think what I'm going to do, like Parker already stated earlier on in the episode, July 12th is the release of the new NCAA college football game. So with that being said, what I think I'm going to do to try to grow our audience, because you guys don't know this, but while I am at work at my daily job, Parker actually grinds his ass off getting these TikToks up that you see. He's edited all the podcasts since like halfway through, so I'm super appreciative of Parker. But to do my deed in trying to grow us and take his whistle as a brand, I think I'm gonna start a kind of a hype thing for the new NCAA football game, and I think I'm gonna start like a little dynasty thing, a little dynasty series that you guys can watch if you like watching gaming videos, or just in general, like if it's new people, not even people who listen to the podcast, just in general people who like gaming, because it's something that I want to do. It's something that I enjoy watching in my off time. I know me and Parker both enjoy it. So I think it's going to be fun. I think it could be fun. And so I'm going to give it a try. We'll see how it goes. Even if it doesn't, pan out, maybe I'll just keep doing it because fuck it, why not?
Yeah,
but,
and also, it also could potentially, depending on how, if you do end up liking it once you start doing it, and if we're seeing results and stuff like that, continue that on until college football 24 comes along. And so, like, obviously, I can't play with you, which is probably a reason I probably won't be involved as much as far as NCAA 14 goes. Yeah. But hopefully once 24 comes out, they'll kind of switch some stuff as far as cross-platform goes, all that good stuff, and I will be able to do, like, dynasty, co-franchises, whatever you want to call it. We'll be able to do it together, kind of play against each other.
Which that would be way easier to enjoy, because even if it's not getting views or anything, it's just fun because we're sitting there playing a game together. So
right.
Yeah, but very excited for what we're gonna get started, what we're gonna get going here. But as always, we appreciate you guys for listening. If you did make it this far, I know it was kind of a long episode, probably our longest to date, but we did have a lot to catch up on, and hopefully it was entertaining. We appreciate everyone who made it this far, as always. And Parker, got anything to finish up with?
No.
There we go. The trademark no, as always. All right, guys, we appreciate it. We'll see you guys in the next one. See you guys.
Peace.